On April 5th, J. Cole decided to surprise drop his new project, which is called Might Delete Later, serving as a precursor to his highly anticipated next studio album, The Fall Off. And of course, a lot of the conversation that was generated was focusing on the 7-minute drill song, the outro, which was a diss to Kendrick Lamar. We did a whole video on that if you guys do want to see it. But it's time to have a conversation about the album as a whole. So we're going to be giving you guys our official album review, breaking down the artist performance, the features, the content, and much more. And if you guys want to actually catch our full live album reaction that we did the night it came out, you guys could access that on Patreon. Look out for it in the link in our description. But let's get on with this, bro. J. Cole, new project, always a big event. Doesn't matter if it's a surprise release or not. Let's jump into the artist performance. What did you think?
Listen, I think that it was definitely it was an interesting night. I'll say that, because obviously there was the whole conversation of 7-minute drill that went over the weekend, and a lot of people were questioning the album, and a lot of people were having conversations about the album's content. But I think when I look at it from an artist performance standpoint and kind of taking 7-minute drill out of there, which I'm going to talk about because it is on the album as far as maybe content goes and other things go, I think J. Cole did his thing throughout the entire project. I feel like there's a bunch of strong performances, especially his first verse on Pricey. I feel like that was a great way to start off the album. Comes in with a very aggressive tone, comes in with that quick pace flow. I also like something like Crocodile Tears, a lot more of a pronounced sort of J. Cole coming at you. Again, a very passionate flow coming at you and really setting this tone for what the album's going to be like. But I also have certain performances that I'm not a fan of. For example, something like a Fever, right? That's a lot more melodic. I feel like it did not work at all in my opinion, and I'm not a big fan of that performance. I feel like J. Cole's melodies are off. It's a bit of a stale song and performance in my opinion. But how do you like his performance overall on the project?
I mean, yeah, I think overall from the jump on Pricey, and then even hearing him say that he's hungrier than all the newcomers on Crocodile Tears, he is proving that. He's giving you volatile verses and performances. For example, on Crocodile Tears, the way that he starts off a bit slower, has monotone energy, and then shifts that tone and gets more aggressive once the heavy drums kick in. You're getting these beautiful displays of passion and hunger all throughout it, even on a song like Ready 24 with Cameron. It's cool to know that after all the popularity and him being placed within the upper echelon of the rap game, he still wants to show people that he's that top guy. So I did admire that. But going into some of the songs that I feel like the performances were a bit off, like you were mentioning Fever, the auto-crooning was really not working for me whatsoever. Another song where I didn't like his performance was Hide Your Bitch, HYB, where he's trying out these modern UK drill flows over this drill beat, and I'm like, this is just not working out. This is not really the right approach for Cole.
See, I like that performance.
I didn't think that was a good performance.
Like it was good and
also,
it was smooth.
Another one that might be a controversial take, Hunting Wabbits.
Why? What's
I feel
wrong with
like
that performance?
It was a bit more like laid back, and I just feel like besides a
It was
couple of cool
menacing,
flows, it wasn't really like that entertaining. Like it kind of was a bit boring for me as a performance. Also, what he did on the song Pie was incredible, but I want to get more into that when we talk about the content of the album.
How about 3001? This was previewed on Instagram, actually, in the Might Delete Later, I believe, Volume 2 session. And then after that, when you actually get into the song itself, it's a full version of it. So how did you enjoy that performance?
I mean, like, he sounded reborn on that song. He sounded so free, the vitality, the concentration, how locked in he was. This was like J. Cole turning into beast mode and saying that, like, I'm up for any challenge, and giving you that fast-paced cadence was just really, really cool to hear. So that's a big standout for me. Apart from that, his performance on 7-minute drill, I thought especially in the second half, he brought more of like that tone that you'd expect to hear on a diss track, where there is a bit more anger, there is a bit more conviction behind the bars, whereas the first half, he seemed a bit hesitant and a bit unsure of himself in the way that he was emitting the vocals.
Just looking at that performance, though, like, it's tough.
It was decent. It was okay.
It's tough, though, now. I feel like that's definitely a song that didn't deserve to be on this track list.
It shouldn't have came out at all.
Absolutely not. So,
but overall, artist performance, I think, was great. Cole did what he had to do. He sounded militant on the mic when he needed to. You agree?
Did his thing. Yeah, I think great is a good rating. No pun intended for this one. But let's keep going on with this. The content matter, right? So, listen. We did our full breakdown of 7-minute drill. We went through it all. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if you want to catch that, we have a video for it. We have a video for the apology as well. If you guys want to go see full breakdowns of the track, which is the outro, you guys could. I just think that it, like, docks off points. it docks off points on the
Absolutely.
project.
I mean,
Absolutely.
the fact that he doesn't believe the shit he was spitting on that song, I'm not gonna believe it anymore. I'm not gonna take it seriously, right? And I don't think anybody should, especially him going into the Kendrick discography angle. That wasn't really wise, but like you said, we kind of went over that. It does knock off points. I think that you are getting a fair share of really solid wordplay and also some cornier bars, to be honest with you. For example, the bar A B C D E F G H I J K M N O P. That's little me in the classroom asking what's L. I never been known to take those.
Yeah.
That was pretty corny. There's a couple of those. One of my favorite bits of wordplay comes on Pi where he raps, "Now please hold Joel like you garden Philly's young center, quick to leave a chick curved. It's only one of me, but bet it's like six hers." So he's saying, hold Joel Embiid, who's the center for Philadelphia, and then it's only one of me, but bet it's like six hers, Philadelphia 76ers.
I get it.
So that was really clever. I was really a fan of that.
Some writing
but
I didn't like on the album was
Yeah.
again on Fever. You go to the chorus. I love her and I need her. She keeps giving me fever. Yeah, like blowing on sativa. She keeps taking me deeper. Yeah, and it's quite interesting because then you go into 3001 and J. Cole actually says that he's taking a break from smoking weed. So like I don't know like if that's maybe conflicting for the content as well. That's what I feel about with the content with the project, and that kind of puts me in a different place now, especially after listening, with the 7-minute drill. There's some conflicting bars throughout the project, and I don't feel like it's his strongest writing in his catalog. Even something that the way that he starts off this first verse, got a new deal, just ran a train on the label. They're not real, and so they came with some fables. So it's not necessarily the strongest J. Cole writing, and like without a chain, them boys plain as a bagel. You get what I'm trying to say? Like these are bars that I'm not coming to J. Cole for. Like this is some stuff that I really don't want to hear from Cole. And I get the approach was to be more melodic. It was to be maybe, a bit more seductive with the let's say the performance, if you want to say that. Like it's maybe more towards the ladies, but like even at that, you give plain as a bagel bars to a lady, I'm not sure if she's gonna be intrigued in it. You get what I'm trying to say? Like that's just what that's just kind of like where I'm at.
It doesn't pass the wrist test, Brad.
But I'm just kind of being honest
No,
because
I feel you.
because
but
that's a big complaint that I have with the project is that I'm going into the writing and I'm just kind of looking at the intent for a lot of these tracks and I'm kind of second guessing myself, right? So that's where I'm at with it.
I will say this. I feel like a lot of fans are going to feel conflicted listening to this album as a whole when it comes to the writing, just because the timing of the situation and the type of writing he has on this album are at odds. Because when you're delivering bars like "I'm the one they fear" on the low ski, or bars about like being the god MC who's untouchable, it is going to be hard to feel the conviction behind that after getting a 7-minute drill and hearing out the apology.
Yeah,
so
like even going on to
it's
something
really going to be something that maybe ages poorly, without a doubt. But I will say this. I want to talk about some positives because you have Trey the Truth in Ibiza, where you're getting topical focus from J. Cole, where he's rapping about embracing his imperfections as an artist. I found that was so refreshing to sort of let go of the pride and be like, I've written some horrible refrains. Like I'm in a place where I want to just let people see me for who I am, as the imperfect human as I am, even through the music, where I'm going to give you some shit that's half-baked sometimes because I feel like putting it out. I feel like expressing myself at that given time. So I loved that perspective from Cole in that song, and that was a massive highlight for me on the album, as well as Sticks and Stones, where he's rapping about his mom being broke when he was a teenager and about how he was doing these pawn shop hustles to try to make some money.
Of course,
so
and
there's those outliers where you're like, this is great.
It's just that like after you get what you got this weekend, are you looking at these bars and you're like, well, I'm buying into this at the moment. There's no doubt that J. Cole is still one of the most dominant rappers of all time. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that when you look at this project at face value, I always went into J. Cole for truthful bars. I always loved his knowledge. I always loved to be able to get his perspective. And this is just not a perspective that I could buy into anymore, if I'm being completely honest. At least for this project.
I do agree.
I have to be honest
Also,
with that.
HYB, I feel like, I'm sorry, Cole. I'm not tapping. I'm not like searching up J. Cole on Spotify and tapping into the off season or For Your Eyes Only for bars about your drip and money. And that's all you get on something like HYB. And there's a couple of instances of that where it's like the focus, I would say, lyrically is I'm the top rapper in the game. I'm making a lot of money. And that's really it, besides a couple of outliers where he's actually getting introspective and giving you something deeper than the surface. So it was underwhelming, but it's kind of a mixed bag. I want to give it a good rating. There's spots of genius and of brilliance, and there's also spots of question marks where you're like, this is a guy who's never fronted before, and now it feels like maybe he is a little bit.
Absolutely. But okay, let's keep going on with this.
Good
Let's
rating.
go on
All right.
to,
Let's go on to the feature. So this was interesting because Cole has been for the longest time the guy who's prided himself with not having any collaborations, but now since the offseason, he sort of changed the tide and has gone into being open to collaborations, and I'm happy to see that side of him. So I was really intrigued to see how this was going to work out. So let's start off with the intro, Pricey. You have young Dro who's on the hook. Minimal role on there. It serves its purpose. Nothing
Doesn't do
crazy.
anything crazy.
Ari Lennox sings very nicely and has some tenderness on that song. I like the hums that she brought in and like how she's singing about Cole's rise into the game.
Absolutely.
That was really cool.
That was cool.
I really like that.
It was also a
feature.
nice break within the track as well. Like I feel like the transitions between her chorus and then after that, J. Cole's verses were really well done. So I did enjoy that.
What about Gucci?
It's Gucci Mane,
When I was listening to it, I'm like, did Gucci really write this? I'm like, this is unlike anything. Like, when is Gucci Mane gonna do spoken word poetry? Like, okay.
You know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's not necessarily. I guess because you actually go into the writing, and it's like the trials and tribulations of creation. It's a quiet theme of those in
That's what
dire
I'm
need of
saying.
elevation. 1 minute infatuation, next minute hating every statement you make. It sounds like a J. Cole verse.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, damn, did Cole write this or did Gucci write this? Like, I don't think Gucci wrote it.
Shout out Gucci. But okay, let's keep going on with this. Cameron on Ready 24. I think it was all right. I mean,
So underwhelming.
It was, but you know what? Shout out to Cole for having him on the album.
You know what it
He's
was
a
like?
legend. Yeah,
He didn't match that high voltage energy that Cole brought on that record. And it's like Cameron, like you're rapping on some old Dipset shit. Like it's some Chipmunk soul. Like you should be able to bring more than just
but
a
it's
couple
also,
of decent bars.
Yeah, but
you know?
Cameron's in a later stage of his career.
It's not an excuse.
I'm not saying it's an excuse. I understand why it's not a good verse.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an excuse, but I understand why it's not a good verse. So
But let's
keep
talk
going on with this.
about Boz, who's on HYB. Let's talk about Central C as well. So I'm not a fan of the hook whatsoever. I feel like there's no real texture to his vocals. It's very plain sounding, flavorless even. And it just, again, it doesn't do anything in terms of catchiness or to hype you up, which is, it sounds like a record that's supposed to be hype, and it doesn't really achieve that as a hook. Then Central C, how did you feel about him?
Central C actually had a solid verse on this, absolutely. And shout out to Central C. He actually had a good performance at Dreamville Fest. I actually enjoyed it. It was one of the better performances from everyone else that he brought out. So shout out to Central C. I mean, you're getting bars on here of like, Lord forgive me as I'm a sinner, the way that I live, I'm preparing for hell. I don't know why you're mad. You should probably thank me because I'd be harrying your girl. Anyways, so the way that ended off is not great, but I like the way that he started it off. It was solid.
I think lyrically it's whatever, but it's Central C. I enjoyed the track presence.
Absolutely. He has a great track presence.
He
The way
does.
that he's smooth, the way that he's calm and patient with his delivery as well. And then, it's also like he's smooth and calm, but there's also like a bit of there's a quickness to his flow, if you get what I'm trying to say. Like it engages you into the track.
You want to talk about the best features on the album now?
So I'll let you talk about that. Where do you want to start, man?
Well, you know where I'm going, don't you?
Where you want to go? Oh, you want to start with Daylight?
Daylight and Absol, man.
Oh, for sure.
These
Those are
guys
definitely
were the best feature performances on the entire album. I love their back and forth, their call and response. I love the metaphorical and allegorical bars they brought to the table. Like the whole thing with like the Malcolm X assassination, like the way that they broke that down.
Crazy.
That was fucking insane.
Did you go through Absol and Daylight's actual like verse structure? Did you see the way that they structure their? It's crazy because it's so synchronized.
I know,
and
bro.
every single like it's kind of like it's so weird to the point where I'm like, how did they actually do this? Like this is an incredible track, so I really do enjoy it, and I actually really do enjoy J. Cole's last verse on Pie. But then again, like we were talking about in the content matter, I kind of look at it a bit differently now. So
and the last one to talk about is Baz, who had the bridge on stealth mode.
Well, he had 8 lines on the project.
Yeah.
He had 8 lines. It's so minimal that I don't necessarily
It just-
have anything to say about it. I mean, it's
That's what I'm
kind of
saying.
plain.
It
Like
felt unnecessary, right?
absolutely, it did feel a bit unnecessary to the track. And then after that, he ended off the track with "We was just vibing, we was just vibing." So overall, I think the features were good. It's kind of a mixed bag again, and it's not necessarily the strongest feature list, but you did get some highlights on it. But let's keep going on with this. Let's talk about the production. You're getting Daoud production on this. You're getting T minus. You're also getting some J. Cole production. So how did you feel overall?
I mean, overall, I feel like it wasn't the most memorable crop of beats. Like, I don't feel like any song was like horribly produced or like poorly mixed and mastered by any means, but Let's get into some of it. So Ready 24 was a major highlight for me. That was sort of like the biggest throwback that we got to an older era of hip hop sonically, and getting like that old Dipset feeling, the old Chipmunk soul. It was perfect for J. Cole. I'd love to hear him on more productions that sound just like that. Another favorite of mine is T-Minus's Crocodile Tears, where you have the wartime sirens that kick it off, and then slowly you get the eerie piano keys, and then 1 minute into the song, it takes a full minute to get those drums. So that build-up was incredible. Reminded me of a beat you would hear on If You're Reading This Is Too Late. So that was a major highlight. Let me ask you this. Like, was there a beat or two that you weren't fond of?
Fever again.
Yeah, that was really like ATL Jacob. The way the sample was flipped was
Cujo
awful.
Beats. Yeah, it wasn't a great sample flip, and it just feels a bit offsetting as far as the project goes. I understand that this was just Lucy's, and it was kind of like, here's some throwaways until we get to the fall off. But at the end of the day, it's not gonna pass. It really doesn't for me. So I think that was a weaker production off of the project. Honestly, the first half of 7-minute drill. The first half of 7-minute drill, like they should have never used that production. The Conductor Williams beat, on the other hand, that was phenomenal.
Stupid.
That was phenomenal. But the T-Minus beat, it was like, I feel like they were trying to match the tempo with like that, if you get what I'm trying to say. Something that maybe has a bit more of a competitive spark or whatever the case may be. I just wasn't a fan of the drums on that, and I don't know. I didn't like the horns either.
That's almost insulting to like that, because I mean, like, this beat was so indistinguished.
I didn't say that it pales in comparison to like that. I'm saying they tried to recapture that same essence of having like a competitive feel to the production.
Maybe
on the first half.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's on the same level. No way, absolutely not.
I see what you're saying. To me, it just felt like the most like indistinguishable trappy. Like, it just was so basic. But what else did you have as highlights?
Trade the Truth and Ibiza. I love this production. Produced by Daoud and DZL. I love the drums on this. I love how fast paced it is. And it sounds like a very lush production as well. So I was a big fan of that. Another production that I actually really liked was 3001. This was vicious, produced by Mike Will, Made It Plus, and T-Minus. One of the biggest standouts production wise on the album, and I really do feel like when you look at this, maybe if you were to take a different approach with it now, it would feel completely different. But a production like standpoint alone, it's definitely one of the strongest beats off the album.
That's a headbanger. The unsettling synths, the booming bass, like, that is a quality fucking beat. And I'm glad you mentioned Trade the Truth and Ibiza, because I love that beat. Like, that vocal sample is just so mesmerizing. And
it's
even
lush,
like,
man. Like, it feels luxurious.
Even the orchestral flourishes at the end, just beautiful. What else would I say? I would say also Hunting Wabbits. The anthemic horns, a bit of a psychedelic vibe to it.
That was really nice as well.
That was a really fire beat.
I liked HYB's beat, actually. I liked it. I'm being honest with you. I like the strings on it. I like the little vocal sample in back as well. But I'm just not a fan of the track presence or the content as a whole. So overall, I think the production was good. It wasn't anything too crazy. For J. Cole standards, I think that there's definitely maybe room for improvement off of the fall-off, which I do expect, obviously. Like, this was full of loosies and throwaways, but regardless, I would say a good rating. But let's talk about the replay value, bro. So,
listen, man, this is...
Where are you, man? What are you doing with this project now? What do you got with it?
I'm going to say this. Like, this is an era that's obviously attached to the fall-off era. And right now, I'm just thinking, like, is this project going to fall to the wayside once the fall-off does come out?
Of course it is.
That's what I'm trying to say. So it's like, even though I have my highlight tracks, it's like, okay, these are cool to hold me over for now. But when I'm looking at the pantheon overall of Cole's catalog, are these, like, in the upper echelon? Maybe a couple of them are, certainly. But, I mean, I don't know. Even given the fact that a lot of these tracks in relation to the situation are not going to age the best, I don't know. But I will say this. I'm steady listening to joints like Pi, like Pricey, like 3001, like Trade the Truth and Ibiza. Like, I did get a lot of value out of the track list.
Absolutely. I agree with you. But there's also misses on this track list for me that I'm not going back to. Example, like A Fever. That's arguably one of the worst songs J. Cole dropped this decade, in my opinion.
In my opinion.
I really don't like it. Even something like a 7-minute drill, the outro. I'm not going back to that.
No.
Ever.
No, you're not.
There's no way I'm going back to that. Absolutely not.
Same for
stealth
mode. Yeah.
I'm not going back to that either.
HYB for me too.
So you do have like 4 or 5 songs on a 12-song track list. So that's it. That's what I want to ask you.
Yeah.
Because I've been in this situation, Lou, before where I'm not taking 4 to 5 songs out of it, or like, I'm kind of skipping over it. But I still give it a good rating because I'm going to be revisiting it. And these songs are going to be heavy in my rotation. So how are you? I want to know, how are you attacking this? How are you looking at this as a whole?
I mean, most of the time, like, I often look at the ratio of saves to songs that I'm not keeping, right? And with this album, if I'm not keeping, let's say, 4 songs and I'm keeping 8, that's good to me. That's a passing ratio. So I'm gonna give the replay value a good rating
I
ultimately.
agree with you.
Yeah.
Regardless if I don't have songs I'm not going back to, I'm still going to be spinning a lot of these really heavy.
Yeah.
Like you had said, going back to songs like Trade the Truth and Ibiza. I'm still going back to Pie. Sticks and Stones, I'm actually going to give a couple
That's
of
a
more
great
listens.
song.
Yeah, I feel like that's a sleeper track off of this album as well. I know you didn't like Hunting Wabbits, but I feel like that's really good for me. I'm not going back to Ready 24.
What about Crocodile Tears?
I will.
Yes,
I will be
for
going
sure.
back to Crocodile Tears. But overall, like you said, I think it was good. So just my overall thoughts off of this album. Listen, man. I'm gonna save my tracks off it, but I just kind of want to forget this weekend. Like I'm being completely honest with you.
You want to forget the album? Is that what you're saying?
No, I want to
Okay.
forget this because this album is obviously attached to this weekend. It is, especially with that track being on it. It is, and I think that if you look at this track list for what it is, and you really look at that song, then like J. Cole said, like get this shit off DSPs. Like it is corny. Like it doesn't sound real and authentic to the track list. And while that is one blemish on this track list, I'm not going to completely discredit every single thing off of this album. So, like I said in my replay value, I'm going to be keeping a handful of songs on here. I think he did have a great performance, especially for the majority of the track list. I do think you're getting some of the weakest tracks in his catalog, like example of Fever. And I do think you have an all right cast of features. But I think overall, it was a good album. It was nothing too crazy. And honestly, like for J. Cole standards, getting a good project before the fall off, it's a bit disappointing. But it's good. I can't say anything else about it.
It's almost ironic, that you had that bar, your first show was classic, your last show was tragic, because to me, I feel like the Cole fan base is going to view this project as tragic in the sense that it will always serve as an afterthought, as an afterthought, to the Kendrick battle situation. It will always have that overshadowing it. And that's unfortunate because I see too many people running wild with the narrative that, this project is so ass and it's not good, it's trash, this, that, and the other. When in reality, I mean, listen, it's a cool appetizer for the fall off. That's how I feel about it. For a project full of Lucy's, like an Untitled Unmastered or like a Dark Lane demo tapes, sure, it has a playlist feel without a doubt. But that being said, I still feel like there is a lot of quality to take out of it. You have Cole sharpening his skills as he's continued to do over the last couple of years. And besides a couple of missteps, you are getting quality music. But it just sucks that, again, this project will always feel like an afterthought to the battle. So ultimately, I'm giving it a good rating, man.
Yeah, it was a good listen, but that's kind of disappointing considering like what we know J. Cole is capable of. But listen, it's not over. It is definitely not over. Let's see how the next couple of months to a year progresses.
Fall off is still among us, guys.
Let's see what happens. I mean, I'm not obviously I think like this definitely, did something for the situation, but regardless, there's still a mech on the wall. Like I don't want the fall off conversation to be tainted now.
But he's got to come with a much better record
okay.
than this.
I want to maybe
These got to come much harder than this.
Absolutely. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let me know in the comment section, how do you feel about this album? I would love to see your thoughts on it, and let me know, how hyped are you for the fall off? Thank you so much for watching this review, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.